I'm glad it worked out.
Appreciate everyone joining us for Coach Franklin's weekly press conference. We'll start with an opening statement from Coach, and then we'll open up to questions.
Like always, appreciate you guys coming out and covering Penn State football. Really appreciate it. Game captains this week, we'll have Sean Lee, which is awesome having him back. We haven't had him back in a while, so we're excited about that. Obviously, everybody knows his background. Penn State linebacker from 2005, 2009, then 11 years in the NFL with the Dallas Cowboys, two-time All-Pro. So it's great having him back, and then Brad Spider-Caldwell as well. Talk about kind of quick summary of the last game. We won the turnover battle. We won the explosive play battle. We won the third down battle. We won the sack battle. We won the drive start battle. We did not win the penalty battle. Players of the game on offense, Drew Allar and Katron Allen. On defense, Adisa Isaac and Abdul Carter. On special teams, Alex Felkins. And then D-Squad players of the week, Matt Dedish and Ethan Black. And on defense, Jake Wilson and George Hlavik. Jake has been Mr. Consistent. He's been phenomenal for us, and having a big role in getting us ready each week to be able to be successful. And then on special teams, Kavion Keys has won it multiple times now. Some positives from the game, dominant win, 1-0. Turnover margin, and respecting the football. We're plus 16 in turnover margin, which is number one in the country. The next best is plus 12 in the country. Starting fast was huge in this game. That first fourth down stop, not only was that a huge play in the game from a momentum standpoint, the first big momentum play of the game, but then also the offense was able to turn that into a first drive touchdown. We won the middle 8, and then our ability to make them one-dimensional on offense, negative 49 yards rushing. They actually just stopped calling runs. We were 3 for 3 on field goals and 6 for 6 on PAT, so that was great. The kickoff return, I think, was a big play in the game, not only from a field position standpoint, but they had just scored, gotten a little bit of momentum, and to be able to respond right away with that play was huge. Third quarter dominance continues. We've scored 97 points in the third quarter and given up 0. And then just Dom DeLuca, I think is just a great example. I've talked about him a bunch, but I think he's just a great example. Has come to Penn State, and every opportunity he's been given, he's maximized them. Doesn't say a whole lot, but you give him a responsibility, he puts his head down, and he gets to work. And he's really been able to take every opportunity that he's been given and maximize them. And when you do that, more opportunities come. He's been a great example for our team with that. So big fan of his. Getting into Michigan and Coach Harbaugh, obviously one of the most highly ranked and regarded teams in the country. Talk about them on each side of the ball. Sharon Moore, their offensive coordinator, has done a really good job. This is his second year in this position, but first year without sharing the responsibilities. You look at scoring offense, they're number 1 in the Big Ten and 5th in the country. Passing attempts, yards per attempt, they're 1st in the Big Ten and 6th in the country. Turnover margin, they're 2nd in the Big Ten and 6th in the country. And then third down, they're 1st in the Big Ten and 2nd in the country. So really good numbers. The quarterback has been a differentiator for them, completing almost 76% of his balls. Also has the ability to make plays with his feet, either running for first downs, touchdowns, or extending plays. Obviously, we all know about Blake Corum. Roman Wilson's having a huge year when it comes to explosive plays. Their tight end, Colton Loveland, we also have a bunch of respect for. And then their offensive line has won the Joe Moore Award for the best offensive line in college football the last 2 years. So A lot of respect for that unit. Jesse Minner, the defensive coordinator, has done a really good job. You look at their numbers again, total defense, they're first in the Big Ten and first in the country. Rushing defense, they're third in the Big Ten and 10th in the country. Passing defense, they're first in the Big Ten and first in the country. Third down defense, they are second in the Big Ten and 13th in the country. And then scoring defense, they're first in the Big Ten and first in the country. So, really good numbers. We're impressed with their nickel. Their nickel number 0, Mr. Sainristil. Their linebacker, number 23, Barrett. Their linebacker, number 25, Junior Colson. Their defensive end, number 17, Braden McGregor. Their defensive tackle, number 55, Mason Graham. Their defensive end, number 32, Jalen Harrell. And then their cornerback, number 2, Will Johnson, guys that we have a lot of respect for. And then on special teams, their kickoff coverage unit ranks first in the Big Ten and fourth in the country. Their punt return unit ranks second in the Big Ten and ninth in the country. We got respect for their punter and their kickoff specialist, number 19, Tommy Doman. And then their punt returner, number 8, Tyler Morris. Tyler ranks fourth in the Big Ten. Excuse me, and their kickoff and punter ranks third in the Big Ten. So it'll be a challenge. I know our guys are looking forward to it, and I appreciate you guys working with us and adjusting the schedule to do this on Mondays. So open up to questions.
Rich Garcella and then Mike Gross, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, James. How are you today?
Hey, Rich. Good, man. How are you?
I'm good. What has changed with your run defense since the Michigan game last year? Why have you been so effective? And can you give me more reasons? You mentioned Corum, but why is their running game so successful?
So first of all, I think we've been much more disciplined and consistent in gap responsibility. There's been times where we've tried to make plays and get out of our gap, and against gaps and against good teams, the ball will find the open gap. And I think we're a little bit bigger. I think that the size has helped us as well. We're a little bit bigger across the front, specifically the D-line. Not to the point where it's affected our ability to move, because I think that's a big part of what we do as well, is our movements and our games. And then, with them offensively, I just think they do a really good job of getting a hat on a hat. So a really good job of IDing the front, being able to get their being able to get their 6 blockers on our 6 most dangerous defenders. And I think Corum's got the ability to have tremendous vision and balance, and behind the line, because they're able to get a hat on a hat. He's patient, and then once he does decide to go, he's got the ability to burst through the hole. And even though he's an undersized guy, he's a powerful guy, and he's always falling forward. And then, obviously they got to change a pace back as well, who's made some huge plays in the passing game and is explosive in Donovan. So they got 2 really good backs. They got experienced offensive line. They've done a good job being aggressive each year in the transfer portal on the offensive line. So they've been able to bring in experienced guys. I think the 2 guys they brought in, one was a captain at Stanford and one was a captain at Arizona State. So they got veteran guys in that room, whether it's their own guys or guys that they've gone out and gotten.
Let's go to Mike Gross and then Johnny McGonigal.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. The stuff that's been swirling around Michigan this year has brought the whole idea of signal stealing and signal protecting sort of into our consciousness and into the public consciousness. But obviously it's something that you're always aware of. So the question is, have you had to spend more time on that and deal with that more this year than other years? And this week, more than other weeks because you're playing Michigan?
Yeah, I know these questions are going to come this week. I'm going to focus on the things that we can control. We always have to have a plan, and I think I've already kind of covered this and talked about this in terms of what we do and how we communicate to our players and how we communicate to our team during games. But I'm going to leave it at that because less is more.
Let's go to Johnny McGonigal and then Mark Wogenrich.
Hey, James, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. You mentioned J.J. McCarthy being a differentiator. From what you've seen on film so far this season, how is he a different player and quarterback, if at all, from the guy that you guys faced last year in Ann Arbor?
Yeah, I think he's just a more experienced player. He's always been able to make plays with his feet, but he's just improved, kind of well-rounded. He's throwing for a higher completion percentage. He's doing a great job of protecting the football. He can extend the play and make big-time throws. I think the biggest thing with them is they really have not been challenged. They've had really good game control on offense and defense. They're usually ahead on the scoreboard for the most part, and they're usually ahead of the sticks on offense and defense. And when you're able to do that, then you're putting your quarterback or your guys in a very advantageous position as well. So that game control will be an important part of this game, and hopefully here at home, just like we had to go on the road and play in some tough environments. Hopefully this is even more of a challenging environment here. I just got off doing a quick call, and somebody asked me about the 12 o'clock game compared to the 7 o'clock game, and I actually think sometimes the 7 o'clock games, the whiteouts and things like that, they can be a little sleepy. It's late at night, guys are tired. The 12 o'clock game, I think, is going to be a much better environment because between the coffee, Dunkin' Donuts coffee, and then between the sugar from the donuts, our fans will be ready to go. We'll be in that stadium early because we're a morning group anyway. So it's going to be ideal, but I hope that the environment will also be something that's going to be difficult and cause some challenges, because when you can get penalties and get people behind the sticks, they have not had to play that way a whole lot this year. So that'll be a big part in the game.
Let's go to Mark Wogenrich and then Frank Bodani. You're on deck.
Hi, James. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks. What impact did Chop have off the field at Maryland, and could he return Saturday?
Well, first of all, I think it's very telling, right? When we talk about our depth, that we have two of our better defensive ends out of that game in Chop and Amin, and then specifically Chop, maybe our most explosive defensive player, having him out of that game and still be able to play the way we played. So the opportunity and the possibility to have both of those guys back this week will be significant. I thought being able to travel him was big, not only from a rehab standpoint to get him with our trainers and doctors, but also from a morale standpoint. That was something we talked about in the locker room, of not just finding a way to get a win and playing well, but also playing for Chop with his inability to play last week. So we're hopeful to have both of those guys back.
Let's go to Frank Bodani and then Corey Geiger.
Hi, James. Good afternoon to you.
Hey, Frank.
How are you?
Good. I was so good.
Hey, good.
I was waiting to see your face. There you are.
kn-
I lost
I'm
you.
here.
You're breaking
I
up.
know you embrace your running back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's better now. Now you're just pausing because I'm talking at the same
Can you
time
hear
as you are, because it's a delay.
This is tough today, but I hope you can get me here.
You're not in your normal place.
I know you embrace your running back company.
You're not in your normal room and place.
I'm not. I'm in the office, which is causing some issues, but we're going to get through it.
Great Wi-Fi at that office.
I know you embrace your running back. It's terrible. It's terrible. That's a story for another day.
I'll shut up.
So I know you embrace your. I know you embrace your running back combination. Is there a way that this can look where you will go with a lead guy at this point in the season? What would that look like? And is Katron close to possibly getting that status?
Yeah, I think, we did this last year and it was pretty successful. And we're doing it this year and it's been pretty successful. And we've talked a ton about the running backs and having a way to keep those guys fresh for the fourth quarter, but also for the length of their careers, not only at Penn State, but afterwards as well. So we feel very comfortable with the model and the plan and how we're using it.
Last question from Zoom, Corey Geiger.
Hi, James.
Hey, Corey.
You have faced challenges this year, both at Ohio State and in some other closer games. How much do you think the fact that your team has been challenged in some games has helped prepare you for this kind of opponent?
Yeah, I think it definitely helps. I think, whether it's being on the road or being at home or from a scheduling perspective, who we've played out of conference, all those things are decisions that you make and strategy that prepare you for games like this. So yeah, I think it's been helpful. I think it's been beneficial. There's been some games where I've watched them. There's been some games, not just the cut-ups. There's been some games where they've maybe started out a little slow or were down early on, but they've been able to wear people down over the last couple of years. And even if they gave up an early score or something like that, they've been able to wear people down and be able to get a significant dominant win. So I think it's helpful. But at the end of the day, we're going to have two of the best, if not the best defenses in college football in that stadium, very similar to what we faced when we went on the road a little bit earlier in the year. So it'll be a interesting game. It'll be a challenging game for both sides, and I think very similar to our last game. I think it could come down to a one-possession game.
Please raise your hand, and we'll take a mic to you. We'll start with Mark over here on the right.
Hey, James, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great. You talked about gap accountability in that game last year against Michigan. How are you guys set up personnel-wise in terms of depth, size, those sorts of things on the defensive line and at linebacker? Maybe that's different than last year when you were playing these guys.
Yeah, I think, again, we're bigger up front. I think we have more depth. And I think sometimes, again, they do a great job of getting a hat on a hat and the backs being patient. So sometimes you feel like you've been in your gap long enough and now you want to go make a play on the ball, and their backs have been patient enough, and their line and tight ends have done a good job of getting a hat on a hat and being inside out and prying a crease. And Corum's shown that he doesn't need a whole lot of space. He doesn't need a whole lot of room to get the job done. So I think we're better positioned for that. I think we're bigger and more experienced at linebacker. Last year, we were pretty inexperienced at linebacker. So I think the combination of our front four and our experience and depth at linebacker gives us the best chance to continue to play great run defense, which is going to be very important in this game.
On the right, John.
Hey, James, how are you?
Good, John. How are you?
Doing good. After this past week, seeing what the wide receivers did, specifically Dante Cephas, do you feel like they've taken a step forward where they could play at a high level against defense like Michigan?
Yeah, obviously, Dante having a huge game last weekend was big for us. Keandre had a good game as well. The tight ends did some really good things. we just got to continue building on that. We have to continue building on that, not only this week, but then also on Saturday. We need some other guys to step up as well. We need Keandre to take the next step. We need Dante to take the next step. We need tight ends to take the next step. Because we're going to have to make some plays, in the passing game. I don't think there's any doubt about it. We're going to have to be as balanced as we possibly can with the run and pass, stay on schedule, but there's going to be times and opportunities where we're going to have to take our shots, which I know you guys will be happy about, and go from there.
Back left, Andrew.
Hey, Coach.
Andrew.
I want to circle back to a question I poorly asked on Saturday. Drew had probably, or maybe his best game of the season. He was also at his loosest during that game and after that game. Do you think the looseness came from a result of performance, or the performance came from a result of him being loose and feeling better about himself?
What is your looseness metric gauge?
So I'll explain. He was smiling. If you look back through photos, he was smiling from ear to ear for all 60 minutes. He just seemed like a happier, looser guy when we saw him on the sidelines. And is that response of how he played, or do you think that contributed to his performance?
Yes. My wife gets mad when I do that too. She asks me 2 questions, and I say yes because I think it's both of them. Yeah, I think obviously the more you play, the more comfortable you get, and the more confident you get, and the more relaxed you can be. I do think, being loose, being relaxed at every position, I think is important. That comes with preparation and confidence. And then obviously how we played helps with that as well. But besides that, I don't know if I have a whole lot more for you, but I think it's both, right?
On the right, Tyler.
James, your final quarter of the season, you've got 7 offensive linemen engaged by design right now. JB's back, and Caden was obviously able to get back. Is this setting up for the final stretch essentially ideal for your offensive line and the availability and experience that you've accrued there? And how do you think that they can finish out this season based on what you've seen lately?
Yeah, I do think that helps, and this is kind of your question, but going in a little bit different direction as well. I think we've also done a good job of managing the roster in terms of there's some guys that not sure how much they would have played in enough games throughout the season that burning their red shirt would have made sense. So we've done a pretty good job of managing it now that here at the end of the season, we should be able to play even more guys, specifically at the home games, because we don't have the issue with how many guys you're traveling. So there's some offensive linemen like Donka and Javen that I could see playing, more as this season finishes up, starting this weekend. And that's at other positions as well on linebacker. Kavion Keys was all over me on Sunday after practice about wanting to get on the field, whether that's on defense or on special teams. And the reality is I think a lot of those guys could have and would have played this year, but I'm always struggling with, do they get enough reps that it makes sense? That was my concerns with Jameel Lyons. We ended up deciding to move forward with Jameel, but I want to make sure at the end of the year when we look back at the reps that it was enough reps that I feel good about it, Dion feels good about it, and Jameel and his family feel good about it, because there will be value for that moving forward. And then with the offensive line, specifically to your question, yeah, I think Shelton's gotten a ton of reps. I think Venga's gotten a ton of reps, which has helped, I think, keep both of our tackles fresh and healthy for most of the year. The easy thing would have been to say we're just going to leave Olu on the field, but getting Shelton over to left tackle, which is where he's most comfortable, I think has also helped Olu. Same thing with Venga. Venga being able to get reps at both guards on both sides of the ball, which again isn't always easy for guys to do that, to be able to go to both sides and get in different stances and have different opposite footwork. So yeah, I think that's been valuable. And again, hopefully with these other guys, getting some reps as well, that may help us even more moving forward.
Way in the back, T. Frank.
T. Frank.
Hey, James, I'm going to ask you about your defensive tackle size again. Just kidding. Sorry. Clearly didn't read the room. Your linebackers, it seems over the last couple of weeks, from a run perspective, have taken things to a new level with Kobe and Abdul specifically. Just wanted to get your opinion on their growth and their awareness of the things going on around them.
Yeah, I thought Abdul, played his best game. Was flying all over the field. Was playing kind of within the structure of the defense. Made a ton of plays, but more of that, you felt his presence on the field. Curtis, I think is playing at a really high level, is consistent. He's the guy that, again, you look up on the stat sheet at the end of the game, and he's got 11 tackles and a tackle for loss. Kobe's, been steady Eddie all year long. I thought Elsdon played well last week. Obviously, Rojas playing well, so that goes back to the depth that we're talking about. Dom DeLuca, as you guys know, is the man. I've said that kind of over and over and talked about all the reasons why. Excuse me. And then we were, also able to get Keon Wiley in the game. And Keon did some good things, so that's important for us moving forward as well. And again, to your point, that's going to be important this week because it's not going to be just the D line that's challenged by this O line, tight end, and running back group. It's going to be that front seven and their totality up.
Ben,
how's it going?
Hey Ben,
I'm going to ask you an optics question, which I realize has been grinding your gears recently, so I'm doing it as delicately as possible, but. For the most part, the question in these games has never been competitiveness. But when you take off your coaching hat and put on the trying to get people to buy into where you're at and where you want to go hat, do you think there's a big picture need to show people a more complete game offensively in juxtaposition to how it went against Ohio State, against a similar defense on a similar platform in a similar sort of game?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a fair question. But again, you're playing the number 1, the number 2, the number 3 defense in the country, and they're ranked that for a reason. They're ranked that for a reason. So, but yeah, to your point, yes, there's no doubt about it. But again, the rankings are there for a reason, and for the same reason why people struggle against our defense. But yes, there's no doubt about it that in these types of games, we have to show that we can manufacture yards and points against whoever we're playing. But I think there's a way to do that, and I also think as a coaching staff, we got to be patient, and we got to capitalize when those moments come, because there's about 4 to 6 moments or plays a game in these types of games that you got to capitalize on them, and we need to capitalize. So, yeah, fair question, and I hope I answered it.
Neil.
James,
your flashlight's on, just so you know. That happens a lot with you.
Sorry. That's one for you.
No. It's not. This isn't a battle. I'm just telling you. Your flashlight's on. I don't want your battery to go dead.
Thank you. Last year, maybe not the final score, but you guys were, pretty in the game. Maybe, like you said, 4 or 6 plays away. How much can you take away from that in building some confidence for this year?
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying a little bit to Ben's question is that's where I think we're going to have to be patient. I mean, could this game turn out to be, a game where there's multiple touchdowns scored on both sides and it comes down to a one-possession game and more of a shootout? Yes. Is it more likely to come down to a low-scoring game and a battle and a one-possession game and 4-minute, 2-minute type situations at the end? That's probably most likely. So for us, we got to make sure that we don't lose patience. There's going to be times where punting, may be the best option. And, we got to manage this game. And when the opportunities present themselves, we got to take advantage of it. So I think patience is going to be critical. I look at the Iowa game. I think that was one of the most important things that we did. We came in at halftime, and I said, don't get impatient. Keep doing what we're doing against a really good football team and a really good defense, one of the best defenses in college football and has been for a long time. Don't lose your patience. And I think sometimes as an offense or as an offensive play caller, you can do that. You can do that.
There's also there's been a lot of reporting on the status of Jim Harbaugh. I just wondered, how much you guys are following that and whether you have any expectation on his status for this week.
Your flashlight's still on. Will somebody help him with the flashlight? No. I was going to try to use that it didn't work. I'm focused on all the stuff I see on film. That's what we're focused on, is all the stuff that we see on film, their players, their scheme, all the stuff. When I say see on film, what we see on the coach's copy of the film, the stuff that's going on between the sidelines, the 53 and a third, that's what we're focused on.
We got time for two more, Audrey and then John.
Should I turn his flashlight off or just let him go?
Please help him, somebody.
Last year ahead of the game, you called it big boy ball and said, in the trenches that you guys kind of needed to be prepared. How do you feel like that mentality or that adjustment has kind of transpired? Because I do think some of that is a mindset, right, in both of the trenches, that you're going to be physical, because in some of these types of games that seems to be a bit of a differentiator.
Yeah, I think so, for sure. It's funny is I think people would describe Big Ten football like that. Historically, I think that's changed. It's interesting sometimes with recruits and recruits' parents and talking to people. The Big Ten has changed offensively dramatically, compared to how it used to be. But I still think this is a league that plays defense on a consistent basis as good as anybody. I remember hiring Mike from the Big 12. Obviously he had Big Ten experience, but hiring him from the Big 12 and what that conference was like defensively, and the styles of defense differently than the styles of defense in the Big Ten. I think it's up front. I mean, I think if you look statistically, and if you're using maybe the NFL as a benchmark, I think the Big Ten had more offensive linemen drafted than any other league. So I think when you kind of take all those things into account, historical, how good both of our defenses are playing, the fronts, being able to commit and establish the run. I think last week was a good example, right? I'm not saying you can't win just throwing the ball, but it makes it harder to win if you don't run the ball effectively. So it's going to be a big boy game. I don't think there's any doubt about that with both front sevens, whether you're talking about the offensive line, tight ends, and running backs, whether it's the defensive line and linebackers. And then everybody's trying to find a way to get an extra man into the box, to stop runs or to create pressure. So it'll be an interesting chess match, for 4 quarters. It's going to be the physical game. your flashlight is back on again. Yeah, no big deal. It's just information. But yeah, it's gonna be a physical game up front. I don't think there's any doubt about that. You turned it off, and then I think it came back on.
Last question on the left.
Hey,
John.
James, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. Hey, along those lines, your offense has scored a number of touchdowns this season, like K-Trons on Saturday, where Drew, Bo, a running back, they'll get to about the 5-yard line, get hit, appear to be wrapped up, and they just keep moving. And then the offensive line and really the entire offense will push them across the goal line. That attitude and that mentality of playing to the whistle, do you believe that says something about your offense that perhaps doesn't show up in the numbers? And if so, what?
Yeah, I think that's really important, right? To finish blocks with a physical, nasty demeanor, to finish runs with a physical, nasty demeanor, and to finish plays with a physical, nasty demeanor. You know, if you look, you should be doing that all the time because the rule changes. The officials don't want to blow the whistle because they're afraid they're going to blow the whistle early and the ball may have came out. So they don't want to blow the whistle early, but then that also puts you in a bind. I get frustrated then when they'll throw a flag on somebody before the whistle had blown. I'm like, well, how is the defense or the offense supposed to know that? You can't have it both ways. But to me, on offense, we want to finish plays like that. On defense, we want to finish plays. How do you show your value to the defense? How do you show your value to the offense? When the whistle blows and you freeze the camera, are all 11 or at least 9 of the 11 guys in the picture frame around the ball in that tight copy? So running to the ball and finishing plays is really important, and it can solve a lot of issues and problems for you in all 3 phases.
Thank you very much, Coach.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Glad you were able to make it work.